how much can we do without energy?
Nothing.
Nothing, yes. So, I want to make a short conclusion of what we have said until now, and then go further into the subject. We have seen that the human being is built from two parts. It has a body, and the brain is also part of the body, but the body is conducted from the brain with the nerves. And now we have in the cortex a bundling, can we say this? The nerves all come together to the same place. And we call this place where the nerves all come together the will. That's where they end. And then the will itself has another part where it gets connected to the spirit. So here we have the spirit. It's hard to paint that, but the mind. And from here, from the will, the body speaks to the spirit through the five senses, okay? Only the spirit can feel, hear, smell, and so on. I hope that's spiritual, what the spirit does. So from the will, that's not better. The body speaks to the spirit, but when the spirit thinks or decides, how many places he has to decide? So he has only one place to decide to conduct the body, to give him the needed energy and to make him to do what he wants. Okay? So, the information is done. And this place is the heart of man. Now, we could say the will and the decision point is the heart, and might be true. So the heart has three parts. We will see later. So you see the structure of the human being is very hierarchical. Like everything is hierarchical. You know hierarchy. So from a small seed, there's growing a big tree. But that big tree came out of a very small seed in which every information was in for that tree. And so the same thing, a small place is conducting everything else. Yes, we have everywhere a chain of reaction, and you have a starting point in everything. Yes, you want to make your car to drive, you need to give him a key. Yes, there must be electricity there to start it. And of course, to make the phone or whatever go, you have a button to just start. So the human being is also built in the same way. So all that happens in him, in the end, or where the cockpit is, the ruling place, is just one. And to know that means to know the human being. So how is, in the Bible we find that the heart is called, in Proverbs 4:23, it says, keep thy heart with all diligence, because out of it are the issues of life. So, would it be important to know the heart? Yes or no? Yes. Do you know your heart? Know where this button is? Because obviously Solomon, who lived 3,000 years ago, approximately, he knew something, and he knew much about the heart, because he said, keep it, because the issues of life are from the heart. A few Bible verses before, in verse 21, he says, you should keep the word in the bottom of your heart, because this word in the bottom of your heart gives health to the whole body. It says that a spiritual thing, and you must know that in the Bible the word is the law. It said, keep the law in the bottom of the heart, and your body will be healthy. In Proverbs 3, he says, the fear of the Lord is health to the body. You might find those Bible verses. And so, it's amazing how, from this biblical perspective, disease is viewed from a spiritual point that makes the physical. Now, since we have a spirit and a body, how many laws do we have? We have 2 laws, yes? One that is physical or covers all the physical, and we have one that is covering the spiritual. Now, is the physical in the spiritual or the spiritual in the physical? So, you understand the question?
Yes.
Yeah? So, if this is the spiritual law, where do we put the physical? Inside or outside? So the physical is inside. Yes, because the spiritual is leading the physical. Yes, of course there is interchange, but whenever you break the physical, you also break the spiritual, because the physical is included in the physical law. Now that's just a small discussion. But we have 2 laws. We have the law of the spirit, and we have the law of the body. Now, I could not understand the law of the spirit if I could not see what happens in the body when the spirit doesn't do the right thing. Obviously, the body has a plain setting how the spirit needs to decide so that he does not get sick. Because we saw that when the spirit takes a decision, he produces electricity. So, do you think that the electricity is fixed to the cell? Or do you think that the cell can choose whatever electricity it needs?
It's fixed.
It's fixed. So we have here a fixed place for the temperature. We have a fixed place for the pressure, and we have a fixed place for the thoughts that makes the electricity. So, are we allowed to think whatever we want? Yes, but not everything fits the body. So we need to have a mind that fits the body, so that it does not come outside of these borders on thoughts. Yeah? So yes, we can eat what we want, but how long? Yeah? It's there fixed. So this is why we can go to see the thoughts, how they affect on the cell, knowing what the thought makes in the cell. So I learned how to think not from the mind, but from the body. From the mind, I would have never thought that to be loved doesn't matter. To not be loved doesn't matter. I would always have said, oh yes, I need someone to love me. Yeah? But from the genes or from the cell, I see that that's not correct. Yes, because someone what does another person, the cell does not being affected from what another person says or does, but it is affected on what you think or say. I mean, your words coming out of your thoughts. Now, I make here these two columns, and I make now a third and a fourth one. I just paint this again or write it again more shorter so that we have space. So we have here our basic need, here the organ, and then here comes the action. And those are left on. So we need oxygen, water, food, warmth, sleep, sun, and love. We have the specific organs like the lung, stomach, intestine, skin, brain, eye, and here the mind or the spirit. And now the question is, what do we need to do to have this needs into our life and into our body? So what is the action? What do I need to do to have oxygen through the lungs in myself? So I have to breathe. What do I have? What do I do with water? Drink. Food? Eat. The warmth, I need to warm or cool down, yeah? Warm up, cool down. Sleep, the best thing is to lay down. Sun, it's to expose. And now what does the mind need to do? It must think. Yes? Now, can we, with all these actions, do we need this action to live? Yes. Can we, through the same action, also kill ourselves?
Yes.
How can you kill yourself? By breathing. Not stopping, no, just by the action. So, breathing the wrong thing. Instead of oxygen, you breathe carbon monoxide, yes, and then you're death very fast. So, can you kill yourself by drinking?
Yes.
Eating? Too warm, too cool? I sleep by the sun. So, you see, the action is important, but it is bound to the basic need. You cannot breathe what you want. You cannot drink what you want. You cannot eat what you want. You need to give to your body exactly what the body is expecting and needs. So this is why thinking is not something that is not important. And we will see, and I hope you already got it, that thinking is the most important thing for our life and for our body. And we saw that if love is the need for my thoughts, how must my thoughts be? They need to be always loving, understanding, kind. So this is the mean that the mind needs to use so that it produces the right energy for the body. Can we choose not to love? Yes? But usually, do we choose it, or do we have no choice when you find out that your spouse has betrayed you for 20 years? How much choice do you have?
You can still choose to love.
Pardon?
You can still choose to love.
So can you? I mean, how, or another thing happens, I don't know what strange thing someone does unto you. Can you just think lovingly about him? No. So, but is the cell able to change? To say, well, there comes no love, that's fine, I still survive? It cannot. It cannot, because it's dependent on that. So, the law that we know, the spiritual law, what does it say in one word? The spiritual law says in those 10 commandments, you need to be loved or love. Does it say go around and beg for love?
No.
Have you ever find that in the Bible? You see, the Bible is the only book that doesn't say that you need to be loved. But read the psychology books and read all the other books that speak about the mind. They will all tell you that you need someone to love you. The Bible doesn't say that. The Bible just says you need to love. What the other are doing is not relevant. It says even love thy neighbor as thyself without giving any quality to the neighbor. So can the neighbor come into your garden and break everything down? And are you allowed to say, oh, I love this neighbor? You understand? So the neighbor has there is nothing God describes about the neighbor how he should be. He can beat you, he can steal you, and you still have to love him, that you should be healthy. And your body should work properly. You like it? You really like it? And you need to love your neighbor when he does you something wrong. Yeah, or whatever, whoever it is. I mean, for me, finding out that the human cell needs a divine love that we will speak in our last message tomorrow, and not only just a certain kind of love, that it might function well, proves to me that God is love. Because you cannot construct something you are not into it. You know, you cannot construct a human being to be based in spirit and in body, focused on one thing, on one primary thing, love. You cannot do that except you yourself are love. So, for me, the human body shows the character of God because it needs love, no matter what your neighbor has done to you or not. And this is not something you can change. So, the spiritual law of love is there together with the physical, and it implies to the physical. So, how can I come into the place? Or why am I not able today, if someone does something wrong, to just think kindness of him? Why am I not capable? Some people might say, well, I am. And I think I am able to do something to make you not like me. You think that? Can I do something that you shouldn't like me anymore? Can I do that? Yes or no? Yeah. So who's conducting your mind then? Fine. don't like me anymore, and who's going to solve it?
You are.
Me not.
Yeah.
Because that's the fact. As long as you love me, you are allowed not to love me. So, you see, the human being is not conscious on how it functions. We are in a church, most of us, for many years. How much training do we have in loving our enemies? How much training? Do we get? Yeah, so that we don't get an ulcer or cancer. But we would not even relate it to a broken spirit. Would not relate it. But let's see how really the relation is. When I first started to make that history of life history and physical history, I was thinking that the diseases that I have in my field have different causes. So you have tinnitus, that's one cause. You have dizziness, that's another cause. You have throat sore, that's another cause. And thyroid dysfunction, that's another cause. Wouldn't you think the same?
Yes.
Yeah, I would think the same, that diseases have different causes. And so I was thinking, so I said, I want to know what makes people sick that have tinnitus. So group 1 was tinnitus. And I was searching all my patients that came with tinnitus to find out what they had in common. Because if you have a tinnitus and 10 other people have a tinnitus on the same year, there must be a connection if we are the same being and are the same kind of functioning. So I took the tinnitus group and I took another group with dizziness and other groups for throat. And whatever disease came, I just thought I want to find out what is common to all these groups. And on some day I had from the same disease more patients, and I took their life history and I saw a big connection in all of their lives. Yeah, so I found out in tinnitus, and the ear is ringing. If it's not by an explosion or something else, it was a loss of a relationship. Didn't matter how that happened. If by divorce, by death, or whatever. Then in dizziness, I found out that the people who are dizzy, they have conflicts. They just fight. I once had a man in my house, in my practice. He was in his 60s and he was dizzy for 4 weeks. And he was just not happy because he saw other doctors and they couldn't help him. They gave him some medication, and thank God there are things that you cannot treat with medication because it doesn't remove. And something like that is dizziness. You don't really have a medication to remove dizziness. Yeah? And so I took all this medication and it didn't work. And so he looked at me and he was not happy. I said, why do I am dizzy? Why do I have it? And that was right at the beginning when I was discovering this. And I just answered without much thinking. I don't do that anymore, I hope. I said, because you have a fight. And then he looked at me, and after a pause, he started laughing. And he said, you're right. I have a fight. And then he told me his fight. Guess with whom? No? It was wife related. It was his mother-in-law. You know the typical conflicts, yes? Now this was not a typical conflict. The mother-in-law and the father-in-law had a house. And he renovated the house. He made new paintings and he put, I don't know how many thousand, about 20,000 euro he put in that house to rebuild. And because the parents had promised to give the house to whom? To their daughter when they pass away. And so the good man did something good to his in-laws, but thinking of whom? Thinking that he will earn that one day. Now this gentleman had a neighbor. And one day the neighbor said, "Do you know the plans of your mother-in-law?" That's good to know the plans, is it? And some neighbors know more than you know. And the neighbor says, "You know, if her husband passes away before her, she will not anymore give the house to her daughter, but to her son that she had before she married the husband." Now, how would you get this information without getting dizzy? Would you just think, wow, mother-in-law is really smart. She thinks on this poor guy because he told me he's not really in life very successful. He's over 50, but he did not come along well. And of course, mother are thinking to help him. And so he said, "No, this man didn't work in his life, and now he should earn what I worked." It's a good thought. And so he had this business, and it was very funny. He didn't have business when he was working with the chainsaw. He was working with the chainsaw, hard in the wood. He had no problem. When he came home and sit down, his business started. Isn't it funny how the body works? But there is a cause why this business comes. So, what's the prescription for this guy? To get rid of
Forgiveness.
So he needs to what? To just never sleep, never rest, just keep busy. Would that solve his problem? So, can he let go? What is the prescription that I have to give him? He needs to love his mother-in-law. And when he does that, what does his body to him? No dizziness. It goes away. Now, is that a nice prescription? Have you ever been to the doctor that gives you a prescription? You need to love more. Not really. But I give that to most of my patients because that's their problem. So I got the dizziness, I got the throat. Yes, I found here that when you have pain in your throat, then that's fear, and you have thyroid dysfunction, you have relationship problems. So I got all of it. And I was fascinated every night that I saw. I came home and said, "Oh, I discovered this and that," and my young people were laughing about me. But one day, at the end of 2007, searching for the common grounds in each group, I made, and I think this was God's providence, an interesting observation. That the common thing in all my groups, the common thought, was one thought. So it didn't matter if you had a tinnitus or a dizziness, the thought that came to make the disease was the same in each group. And I was very fascinated because I said, well, that simplifies my life. Is it? When you search for different causes and you find it's only one thought in every group that you find that is responsible for the disease. I didn't believe that. Would you believe it? That's only one thought, and it's common in every human being that makes the disease. Can you imagine that all human problems have only one root? It's only one thought. No matter what problem you have, I always know the root of it. Because there is only one. Only one. You see, on the surface, you can have a conflict with your mother-in-law, with your wife, with your dog, with whatever. But at the basis of your thoughts, it's always the same thought. It took me 4 months to believe it. And I did not just take it, I just worked it out in all the patients. I said, it's only this thought. I don't get to deeper things. Only this, only this. And so after 4 months, I was convicted. There is nothing more that makes us sick, only from the mind, one thought. And that opened up my understanding about the human heart. To understand, okay, how can it be that all the problems that humans have are centered or rooted only in one thought? So that thought gave me much to think. And I'm very glad that I could figure it out with the time how they work and how we take our decisions. So that understanding brought me to the place that there must be only two kind of thoughts that make our decision. So when we go into the brain or into the conscious here, and here is the subconscious. In the conscious, we have that what we call the will. And we saw that in the will, all the nerves end. Yes, there they have an end. The hunger has an end in the will. The appetite has an end in the will. If you are freezing or not, whatever you have, tiredness, every need of the body has its end in the will. Because there you need to become conscious, oh, I'm hungry. I now have to take a decision. But you cannot take a decision for something that you're not conscious of. Yes, you cannot go to eat. Yeah? So this is the will. And in the will, of course, we have also the settings of our mind. And those are the main entrance in our personality. Our will is a spiritual need. With me is harmony. That you might have righteousness, you might have freedom, you might have security, or whatever spiritual need there. They're all set. We are conscious that we want to be happy, are we? We are conscious that we want to have righteousness. We are conscious that we want to have liberty. But the question is, how do we take our decisions? Are we conscious about how we take our decisions? Or are we not conscious? If I give you these two pens to choose, do you know how to choose? You make a decision. How do you make a decision? You know? Right? Well, you see, this is what the interesting thing came out in that experiment with the electricity, where that gentleman, his name is Libet, and the brain people, the brain scientists, now they build on this. In the moment you take a decision, is the decision something conscious or unconscious? The way how we decide. You see, Libet found out when he put a person in front of a screen to just stop that watch that was running. And he found out when he consciously decided to stop, that this is his conscious, his will, the electrical impulse already started 500 milliseconds before. So here you're conscious of what you choose. You choose red or black, but you don't know how you choose black or red. That's why they saw that when you are conscious, your decision already was taken 500 milliseconds before. And now they come and say, we have no will, because the brain is choosing for you. Yes, you're there, but the brain is choosing for you what color you take, because even before you decide which color to take, you have to take that certain color. But that's an observation of the test that is not correct. For me, Libet's experiment was just proving that what I found out in human being is exactly correct. That I do not know how I take decision, but I take the decision. So decision making is not conscious to us. That is the how we make the decision. Decision. Okay? Any comment?
How about Eve?
It's, well, we come back to that, to see if they were conscious or not. But it's amazing that we do not know how we take our decision. But through these two thoughts that I came to understand, or the one thought that was a positive or negative thought. Which one makes the disease? You would also suspect negative. So, in the subconscious, the spirit meets the body. And since the spirit has no possibility to meet the body except in a place where the body understands him and except in the place where he can produce electricity, the body has only two possibilities of understanding. He has only the plus and the minus, because atoms have only two kinds of charges, or what do you call it? Polarity. Yes? So this is 0, and here is the spirit, a little bit above. This is me, or I. And I need to have a thought that corresponds to the plus and a thought that corresponds to the minus. If not, I cannot produce electricity. And I cannot put information in the body because the body would not understand. Now, finding out this one thought that I found responsible for all the diseases, it was the thought of loss. You never have a problem if you have a loss. Never ever. Yes? And when I just discovered that, one of my sons wrote a homemade paper from a psychological test, and there were 25 questions that should evaluate if you have a risk of getting any psychological problem. 25 questions. What do you think those questions were asking for? Each one of them. They just were asking where the person had some losses. But every question had only what did you lose here, what did you lose there, what did you lose there, what did you lose. But they only asked for loss. Because it's not possible to have any problem if you have no loss. And so after 4 months, I discovered that there must be something for the plus So what is the other thought? No? It must be gain, or winning. See, our heart is for gain. Yeah, so these are the two thoughts that we evaluate in our decision. How do we take the decision when the hunger comes? Or when you are putting in front of two columns? How do you decide? So, is the spirit free to go into the lost direction and the gain direction, or is the spirit made to go only in one direction? Don't answer too fast. Just think. Is your spirit free to go into the lost direction and the gain direction like he wants? Pardon? Well, no, it is functioning. It's not about experience. It's just general. Right? Well, the problem is that we cannot choose which direction we need to go. When the hunger comes, your spirit makes a short evaluation that is in 4.5 milliseconds. You decide if to eat now is a gain, and if it's a gain, what do you answer?
Yes.
Yes. And if now eating is a loss, what do you answer? You answer no, later. So, all decisions that man has is only yes and no. Do you remember someone said that your speech should be yes, yes, no, no, and everything else is on the level? So, all decisions that man have, they can only answer with yes or no. There is never maybe. There's never maybe. You have to decide for one. Now you can start eating and then decide not to eat anymore. But you cannot say, I eat and I don't eat. It's not possible. Yeah? So everything that the human can decide is yes and no. And his yes is bound to gain, and his loss is bound to no. Now you don't need to say yes to every gain, but you certainly need to say no to every loss. You see, when I want to get the person to do something, I just can promise him what? Some gain. But he might think, oh, that gain is not a real gain. You know, I might promise him to give him some money if he does something wrong. Or he hides something or whatever, you know, how you call this might? Bribe. Yes, you can try to bribe someone, but he might be some moral, he says, oh, that's, I don't do that. Even though you promised maybe a big amount of money. But that same person that says no to the bribe because it seems it's a loss, you now can still make him to do what you want. How? You just need to find out what you can take away from him. And say to him, look, if you don't do what I say, then I am going to do that and that and that. And that's something that you want to avoid. And then if I'm strong enough, and if I have good arguments against you, you finally are forced to do my will. Because you're afraid to lose what you so dearly love. That's how, not manipulation, but what is it? Blackmail? Aggression, I call it.
Yeah, doesn't the decision really revolve around the big question of what's in it for me?
Yes, everything.
Yeah.
Everything. You cannot decide different than this. This is how we are made, this function. And you can prove it. We can prove it on our brain model. Let's look to our brain model. electricity, and then what kind of feeling do you get? What kind of feeling? Can you ever think that you got something, I mean positive, and have a bad feeling? It's not possible. Everything that you think, oh, that's a gain for me, you produce the right electricity that produces the right hormones, and you feel well. The higher the winning, the higher the feeling. Now, if you pardon? Yeah, we count that it's also lost. So, but then when we have avoided loss, we have no winning and no losing. How do we feel? Still good. We don't have any problems. We don't feel so good as when we have the winning. But on zero, we still have the right electricity and have the right answer in our body. But when we think loss, what do we feel? Yes, immediately our body responds negatively. He does not like loss. Like the spirit does not like loss. The spirit, actually, he can never lose. You know that? To train yourself to lose is impossible. Because you try to train something that like you are not made to be capable to do that. Now when I observed this, I was amazed, and I said, if this is the truth, that we are just deciding between two poles, every decision. So what I eat, when I eat, when I go to bed, everything is just here. Every decision. You just take on this model. And so I said, if that is the truth, then that must be written where? In your body. And I said, if this is the heart of man, then I said, Lord, it cannot be that some small person like me gets something new out of the human. So I went to God and said, Lord, tell me where it is written in the Bible. I don't see it. And guess where did the Lord conduct me to see it? It's in the Sermon on the Mount. It's all over in the Bible. But if you don't know it, you don't see it. So the heart is described by Christ in the Sermon on the Mount exactly like I explained it to you. He's done it more simple. So he says in Matthew 6, starting from verse 19, do not gain or do not
Pay up treasure.
yes, pay up, what is it? Is it pay up treasures on earth? Or how is it? Do not store up treasures on earth where the moth and the rust and the thief can break in and steal it. But what do you should do instead? Do treasures in heaven. So do we need to have a treasure? Yes, you cannot live without treasure. You need to have a gain. But Jesus says you need your gain to be in heaven, so there no moth, no rust, and no thieves can break in and steal it. Because where your treasure is, your heart is also. Does he know where our treasure is? Does he know where our heart is? I tell you, every time you might see you are in a difficult situation, you need to know your heart is there. It's there with your treasure.
Can you gain and lose at the same time?
No. No, we come later to that point of gain and loss, how we explain it. But just the principle. There is only one reason why Jesus says to have no earthly treasure. What is that reason? Tell me what is the reason why Jesus says do not have that earthly treasure.
The thoughts will be on earth. The thoughts will be on earth only.
No.
There is
No.
your,
That's all.
there is a treasure, your mind will be there.
Pardon?
There is a treasure, your mind will be there. Your
Yes,
heart will be
your
there.
heart is there where your treasure is. So if you have an earthly treasure, what's the problem with the earthly treasure? You can lose it. That's the only problem with the earthly treasure. And if you lose your treasure, where is your life? Where is your life? If life depends, if the issues of life come from the heart, and the heart lives from a treasure, and it needs an everlasting treasure, when you lose your treasure, what happens with your life? You are going to die. So simple it is. And I found out that people, when they lost their treasure, that's how they get sick. And there is a nice story in the Bible from a rich young ruler. I really like this story because it proves everything. He comes to Christ and he puts a question. What did he ask? What shall I do to have eternal life? What is Jesus' answer? He says? No, what was the first answer? He says, keep the commandments. What kind of commandments?
All the commandments.
What does the commandment say? Love. Now this rich young ruler was convicted that he kept the commandments or not. He was convicted about that. Now Jesus knows that he has a problem, does he? And now he tries to make him clear where the problem is. So he says to him, one thing thou lackest. You can read the story in Luke 18. One thing thou lackest. Go and what to do? For what purpose? For what purpose? What is the argument that Jesus gives to the rich young ruler?
Put his treasure in heaven.
To have a treasure in heaven. And then come and follow
Me.
me. So what was the rich young ruler missing? And what did Jesus prove to him?
His treasure was on earth.
His treasure was on earth. And he was not willing to do something to have a heavenly treasure.
Yeah.
But when Jesus, when he was asking him what to do to have eternal life, what is the answer of Jesus? You need a heavenly treasure. If you have it, you have eternal life. Because you can never lose it. Because life and treasure is bound together. That we need to gain is nothing sinful, is nothing bad. It is like we were made. When Adam and Eve were put in the garden, God said to them, if you are going to eat, what is going to happen? You are going to lose your life. And if you don't eat from that tree, what will happen with your life? It will stay, you will gain it. And now the devil comes. Well, how does he argue? He says, because you don't eat, you have the loss. You're in continual loss because you don't eat from this tree. And look, the tree is nice to eat and it makes
You are.
wise. Is it wrong to be wise?
No.
No, we are made to be wise. There is no temptation that can tempt you to do something that you make yourself loss. The only temptation that comes is to switch. Yes? To tell you something, look, that's a gain. And that's a loss. And you say, okay, then I go for the gain. That's why Eve believed that it was a gain to eat. If not, she could have never eaten it. If she was convinced to eat from that tree is loss, she could have never done it. Because what you are convinced is a loss. You give your life for that. You cannot do it. You cannot do it. That's conviction. Adam, when he saw Eve eating, he was afraid of what? Yes, so he had to gain, so he didn't think of God's command, he just thought about not to lose. And so he lost, because he did not take the right information, what is a winning and what is a loss. Now you see, we need to function here. Electricity that is good for our body is made here. Here the electron is moved by the Spirit and you get the power. Now, this way of how we function, we can never change. And it's good to know it. And I found it out. Paul, by example, he says, everything that I considered again, what did he say? Is a loss. For what? To gain Christ. So was he in his heart changed? Yes? So he had the right understanding what is a gain and what is a loss. So everything then goes around what is a gain and what is a loss. I can only tempt you to sell you something that's a gain, that you do something wrong to yourself. Yeah? Like, I gave this example in food. Some people complain that I don't speak about food in my presentations. But I speak about food because, like, you are in your heart the way you eat. You know that? So you have a broken heart, how do you eat? You need to do something for your broken heart. And I loved to eat chocolate. Yes? Is there anything wrong with chocolate? That's what I heard, that it somewhere damages my brain, my nervous cell, and doesn't help me to be so fit that the Spirit can move on my cells. You see, when you drink alcohol, when you eat the wrong food, you give your cell not the right power, so the Spirit cannot work with that cell. Correct. Yes, it's like you have a computer, you have the right software, but the hardware is not so good. So it does not really work well. This is why we have two laws. We need to keep the law of what the cell needs from a physical perspective, and also what it needs from a spiritual perspective. But I don't eat vegan or eat what I think is right because of health issue. I eat it because of mind issue. I want that my spirit should always have the possibility of a body that can respond quickly and give him the right information about the environment. You see, when you drink alcohol and you drive, where is the problem? Now, you need to calculate the distance. You need to calculate the speed and the curve. Now, your brain does not bring to the spirit the right calculation, the right time. So, you might think, oh, that's all good. The spirit says, I can push more because I am used to go to the curve. But you will see that your body does not answer as speedily as it would answer if you would have alcohol. And so you are going out of the road somewhere you don't know. So it's so important that we give to the body the best. That's why I don't eat usually only those things that I think my body is best fed. It doesn't matter always if it's tasty. But I made the experiment. If you put on a table to young people fruits and fried French fries, what will they choose? Would they say, well, this is a good mango or whatever? Or would they first jump to the fries? Even me, I'm tempted to the fries. Would you? Yeah, but what is better for your brain? Yeah, what is it? It's the fruit. Yes, that's best for your cortex. But since appetite is there, you want to have also something that gives you a good feeling, you know? The spirit likes good appetite. That's why he puts his hand first to the thing that he likes and tastes well. You see, when I understood that what chocolate did, then I need to take a decision. I came once across, there is one sentence in one book, The Ministry of Healing, it says, cheese should never be the stomach of a human. And so I read that one sentence and I wanted to tear it down, because I like cheese. Yeah? And now, who shall win? The appetite or reason? See, can reason win if the appetite or to eat cheese is a game? No. You might one day say, okay, today I don't eat it, but then you get weak and you're tired and you're hungry. You're just sitting here this way in the airplane, and certain they gave us good food on the airplane. And at the end of the first food, they brought a Magnum ice. You know Magnum ice? Good big chocolate over it, you know, all good stuff. And now I was satisfied with what I ate, but when I saw the Magnum, I got tempted. Do you know that? But the temptation had no power. Why? Because I know from principle that chocolate would not help me. And then I said, well, you can take the chocolate off. Just to finish with something sweet. But then you say, well, that's what inside there is not really also very healthy. Sugar, eggs, and milk don't do very well to your brain and to your system. So I checked this. You can check this in how many seconds? In milliseconds. You go through the checklist. And so I just said, I don't take chocolate. It was just, she was starting first row, I was first, second row, and I need to make a quick decision. Yeah? You see that your mouse is getting ready, and then you do the checking and say, well, that's a loss, and that's a loss. So you have to say, no, if chocolate is a loss, and egg and milk and sugar is a loss, then you won't be possible to eat that. You just stop it. But you're tempted. I don't eat chocolate now for, I don't know, maybe 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years. But one day, I got a patient who was a Christian, Adventist Christian, and they happened to have a chocolate factory. And you imagine what did they bring as a gift to us? Beautiful chocolate. And while we were driving to my practice, I was sitting in the back of the car, and people were driving. I said, Lord, this is happening to chocolate. There's nothing wrong with this. It doesn't harm the brain. But the Lord is very good. When you want to take a decision, when you want to have the settings right, there is no force in your decision. You know, God never forces you. He just remembers you said, oh, well, is there any change in the principle? Is it? No. Never. So in the moment you understand there's no change in the principle, you are free of the temptation. It comes, but it really cannot overcome you. Not even when you're very, very hungry. If you have the right information, you cannot do anything you know is lost. It's just impossible. So we need distant thoughts because we need to be governed. We need to have a direction. Imagine the human being could go towards loss. Then a person could just jump from 11th floor and say it doesn't matter. You would drive on the right side in Australia instead of the left side of the road because you would say, well, it doesn't matter. The surgeon would say, well, the heart is here too well, take it out, it doesn't matter. Because you cannot do any loss by taking out also the heart of that man. Can you?
Yes.
And the surgeon take out the heart together with your wife and not. Because it would be a personal loss, a reputation loss. I know I was almost 5-6 years a surgeon, ENT, you do a lot of surgery. And I really was into surgery, I like surgery, it's like a dog. And you like to do those things even though it's hard to get out of the nose some polyps or you go to the center. And it's so dangerous. One small step and you're in the brain. You know when you go into the nose in the sinus, and then you just let's take another step. Take a little bit and see where I am. Yes? So you cannot just do it except you are in this tension. You need to do something good, but you need to avoid by all method loss. That's why we can have red or we can have lights. Because when it's red, people, what do? Stop light. Because if they go, they might have an accident, or the police might be there and take a picture, and you don't want to pay anything. You need to avoid loss. So God created us in this way so that we can have direction. If you can go in each direction, then nothing matters. But you cannot go into the lost direction. You need to go into the gain direction. You need to avoid loss. That's why it's important to have the thought of loss. Very important. He conducts us everything. See, everything we do, we're just between these two polarities. But we're not aware of it, are we? No, you choose the right color. Why? Right and black. Why do you choose the right color? The red color. No, it's more a game than black. But you're not conscious of that. You choose to eat that or that because that's more game than the other one. So, but you're not conscious. I don't think now, is this a game or you just go so fast that you cannot grasp it. But you can be aware of it, at least later on. And something happened, you can say, well, why did I do that? Where was the mistake? Now, the problem that we have in medicine is not even the thought of loss, because that's a very important thought. We need it. Loss does not make us sick. The only thing that makes us sick in loss is when we think it is personal. So I found that personal loss is the cause of all 90% of our disease that come from the mind. So personal loss is the poison. So the therapy would be, or the prescription would be, you should never have what? Personal loss. If you never have a personal loss, you cannot get breast cancer. You cannot even get a heart attack. Yeah? They all come from personal loss. So, personal loss is that what we need to avoid. I give you a question. Can you avoid personal loss? Now, you see, all human beings say the same when I ask them. But if you say you cannot avoid personal loss, you must have an evaluation of what is loss and not, do you? You cannot say you cannot avoid something without relying on something that you judge on. And that is the bottom of our heart. This is the door, this is the functioning, that's how it does. But now we come to the thing where the spirit, and this is pure spiritual, has an eyesight. What is the gain and what is the loss? You need to have a definition for that. Because you said you cannot avoid personal loss. Why do you say that? You must evaluate then loss and gain through something that is there that says to your spirit, you cannot. But if you cannot, then who is going to destroy himself? Who is going to destroy himself? Me. Because I come in a situation of personal loss. What was the person that had his mother-in-law was thinking to not give him the house? How did he consider that? Personal or personal? All my work, all the money I put in that, now goes to the
Son.
to the son, my brother-in-law, which is not really a good worker. He's not really, he does not merit to get all those stuff for free, does he? So he thinks personal loss, and the body just answers with dizziness. The body makes the dizziness, answers with dizziness, but the mind feels it. Only the mind can feel dizzy, the body cannot. So, personal loss, if we cannot avoid it, we are destined to destroy ourselves in a moment of crisis. Are we? I give you an example. I have a lady, I saw her twice in my career, once 6 years after the event and once 8 years after the event. She is in her best years and she got a loss 6 years ago and 8 years ago. She had a loss. Her 11-year-old daughter was killed bestiality. So, in abuse, whatever. Now, this was her only child, as I remember well, but even if she would have more. And the situation is this. How is the lady after 6 and 8 years? Is she healthy physically or not? Yes or no?
No.
No. She's very sick. She's in pension. She cannot work anymore. She's unable to move powerfully around. Why?
Loss.
Because before, she was healthy. Before the event, she was fine. But now comes the event. And after the event, she gets into a lot of problems. Now, can she also be healthy? Should there be a possibility to get healthy? It should be a possibility because the body must have it. If the body expects you never think personal loss, then there must be truth in that. The body cannot have no truth. And so, my question is, how can she become healthy?
Change your way of thinking.
So she needs to change to see that her child is what?
Gain.
The death of your child is what? No, okay, no. Is it a personal loss or no personal loss?
Personal loss.
You see, if she would think it's not a personal loss, she would be healthy. Because the death of a child is a loss, is it? But as long as it's not personal, it won't kill you. You don't get a disease. You don't even get depression. But if you think that child is personal, you have a problem. So, let's say, take the example of persons that were abused physically sexually abused. They all consider that abuse what? A personal loss. What's the only way that they should not have any issues in their body after 20 or 40 years after that abuse? They need to understand that that loss, that abuse was not personal. Easy or not easy?
Not easy.
Fun?
Not easy.
Not easy. Because, you see, if you go to a therapy and they try to tell you you need to accept loss, they just tell you the impossible. You cannot do it. A mother, as long as the child is hers, she can never see that not personal. You can do whatever you want. It won't change anything. This is why, as long as the person stays in his personal loss, there is no hope for him to get healthy.
It's replacing personal loss with hope.
Pardon?
It's replacing that personal loss status with hope.
No, you are not able, you need to know, is there any personal loss or is there no personal loss? Is personal loss the truth or is personal loss not the truth?
It has to be not the truth if you go.
It has to be not the truth because the body rejects it. It just kills the body. And it makes you to go against it. And by going against your personal loss, you do more harm to yourself than if you would not do anything. But you cannot not go against personal loss because you're made to avoid loss and to go against personal loss. Yeah? So that's why it is so important to understand what is the issue that makes us sick. What is the thought that makes us sick? It is not loss. You know, if the neighbor's wife dies, you can feel with him, but you think it's not my wife, not my child. But how is it when it is different? When you think it's mine, then you get the problem. Now, why do we think that thing is personal? And that is the eyesight. If you look to the Bible, Jesus explains the heart in Matthew. We saw 19, 20, and 21. But he's not finished with the heart. He says after where your treasure is, your heart is, he says, the eye is the light of the body. If your eye is single or healthy, the whole body will be full of light. If your eye is evil, then your whole body will be full of darkness. And if that which should be light is darkness, how big is the darkness? You cannot serve two masters. You either love the one and hate the other, or hate the one and love the other. You cannot serve the mammon and God. So it's very obvious there is an eyesight. Do you think this eyesight is speaking about this eye, or is speaking about the spiritual eye?
Spiritual discernment.
It's about spiritual discernment. And you find that we have in our heart an evil eye. You can read that in Mark 7. Jesus says that the evil eye is in the heart. It's okay. I know exactly the Bible verse, but it's Mark 7. It's a game to drink it all. So, the evil eye. Now, this eyesight is that what the Spirit has as that gives him a definition what is lost and not. And I found out that Do you think the eyesight is the same in every human being or different? Now you would say it's different, but I found out it's the same. Yeah, we have the same eyesight. That's why all say we cannot avoid personal loss. So we have two eyes. We have two things that can be. We have the healthy eye, yes, that leads us to the heavenly treasure, and have the evil eye that leads us to the earthly treasure. So, how does this eye define gain or winning? There are only two possibilities to define gain. It's either to receive or what is the other place? Oh, to receive or to give. It's only these two possibilities. You cannot have more. Gain is either to give or to receive. If gain is to receive, what is the opposite? What is loss? No, it's not giving. What is the opposite of to receive?
To get.
No, that's yeah.
Give away.
No, it's not the opposite to give.
Take.
I mean, it's so easy that you don't get it. It is not receive. Yes, it's not receive. If you are there to receive, then loss is the opposite, not receive, or you receive too less. Did you ever receive too less? Yes or no? I think so. So, or something to be taken away. We can do more for that, but now you have only these two things: to receive or not to receive. If to give is gain, what is loss? Now you know it. Not to give or to keep. Now what is common to every human being? Which eyesight do all human beings have when they come and are born on earth? So which is their one? This or that?
Black.
It's the black. So every human being thinks to receive is gain. And even though that some people think, oh no, to give is gain, then I say, yes, let's do the test. Because out of your heart, your actions are coming. Jesus says, everything good or evil comes from where? From the heart. Now we have two doors to go out. On one door, you receive $1,000. And at the other door, you give $1,000. Which door do you choose?
Depends on the cost.
Pardon?
Depends on the cost.
Yeah, that might be so. But generally, people without thinking go to receive. Yes? But if I say that and say, well, I give you $1,000 here, but tomorrow I want to have 2,000 back.